There has been a ton of whining and complaining by other members of the media since Florida State's Board of Trustees, their president and their athletic director, came out and said that if things don't change in the conference, they may have to look to leave. But that got ratcheted up to another level last night when Bubba Cunningham went on a radio show and UNC's athletic director joined in with his pitchfork. UNC's athletic director made this statement yesterday. I don't think it's good for our league to be out there barking like that. He said this on the Adam Gold show. He said, I'd rather see them be a good member of the league, support the league, and if they have to make a decision, then so be it. Pay for the exit fee, wait for your grant of rights that you've given, and then in 2036, when those rights return to you, do whatever you want. I'm going to tell you why Bubba Cunningham said this in just a moment. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you how this is a complete and shocking heel turn, no pun intended, by him. Back in March, Cunningham joined the ranks of Alford and Graham Neff and Dan Radovich of Clemson, calling for unequal revenue sharing from the ACC. He said, as you look at the other leagues and see the gaps, it becomes critical. His exact words, sooner rather than later. He was in lockstep with Alford at FSU, Dan down in Miami, and Graham Neff at Clemson. But in yesterday's interview, he acted like money was no big deal. And he couldn't understand why FSU would even be concerned about revenue. He probably said the ACC was a great league 7 or 8 times. And he mentioned to the host that he didn't understand why FSU was worried about money. He continued to repeat that line over and over and over again. And I don't know if Cunningham was being a good little soldier for the ACC or if he really doesn't understand the basic business of all of this. But if I'm a UNC fan, I'm concerned either way, and we'll get to that in just a moment. He mentioned how the ACC won 9 national championships last year, repeating that tired line from Jim Phillips that Phillips was all about during ACC kickoff, showing that the former is likely true. Someone on the ACC's board or someone at the ACC got in his ear, and he's repeating a company line. I've also been told by a source close to the ACC meetings that Cunningham was very much on board with the other powers in the conference, and there's a reason his school was named from the beginning as one of the teams who would likely be looking to leave the ACC. It is no coincidence that UNC was part of the Magnificent Seven, and when the ACC meetings were held back a couple months ago, he certainly didn't come up and say anything negative then. But now he's tucked his tail between his legs and he's sticking up for the ACC, the very conference that he knows is in the wrong at the current moment. I heard a quote a long time ago and it said, I'd rather be a failure than a coward any day, meaning I wholeheartedly would rather FSU, its president, its board of trustees, and its athletic director all try their very best to do what's best for our athletic programs, and that being leave the conference. I'd rather them try that and fall flat on their face and fail than for those representing my university to lack the courage to do something. Well, why is Cunningham just falling in line and speaking out against FSU? Well, maybe his monthly Gramco package didn't arrive. I'm not sure. But I think if he maybe had that, maybe he'd be in a little bit more clear of a frame of mind. Maybe he'd be less cranky. If you haven't tried Gramco and you need it because you're a fan of an ACC team that is just disgusted with Cunningham right now, go to thegramco.com for the absolute best in Delta 8. Listen, we're doing a massive gummy push right now. They've got Delta 8 gummies. They've got Delta 9 gummies, the good stuff. They've got CBD gummies, whatever you're looking for, thegramco.com. Use TJ25 to get 25% off. Maybe send some to Mr. Cunningham. Now, here's the big difference is that Bubba doesn't care if his team gets out of the ACC. He truly doesn't. I've been told this by multiple people. UNC is a basketball school. And did you know that UNC is only ahead of Boston College, Wake, and Duke when it comes to TV viewership in football? They're fourth worst in the conference. Respectfully, no one cares about UNC football. UNC doesn't even care about UNC football. No disrespect, but they've got a coach out there who is an absolute shell of himself, and they're fine with that. They're fine winning 8-ish games a year and squandering talents like Sam Howell, and probably the same thing they'll do with Drake May this year, and just being an okay to above average team. Cunningham knows that he can use the ACC's pedestrian money and invest it back into basketball, and his boosters will be thrilled. UNC is never going to compete for anything in football. We know this. Bubba Cunningham knows this. But the basketball AD is defending the basketball conference, and that really shouldn't be a shock to anyone. But if you're a North Carolina Tar Heels fan, I do have something important to tell you guys. First of all, I have no issues with UNC fans. I know you guys are going to litter my comments and take up for your guy, and I get that. I'm really not trying to pick a fight with you guys. Respect the program, and I think it'll have a good landing spot in the SEC or the Big 10. They've been a team we've mentioned from the beginning as being deserving of getting to the ACC or the SEC or Big 10. So this is not my attack on UNC fans. Before you guys litter the comments, I do want to at least try and make peace there. So I think they'll have a good landing spot in the SEC or the Big 10 unless your program is being led by someone who plans to ride it out until 2036, being paid $50 million per year less than the people you're competing against. So at this time, I think you need to pick up the phone. You need to call your AD and tell him to stop being a complete moron. With the basic math publicly available for all to see, a team who could potentially land in the Big 10 or the SEC that is lobbying to stay in the Atlantic Coast Conference is a complete damn idiot and should be removed from their position of duty. I'll repeat that. Publicly advocating to stay in the ACC under the current structure is the definition of insanity, and they should be removed from their position by the Board of Trustees. I have a very hard time believing your Board of Trustees are this bad at math. So, UNC fans, pick up the phone, call your Board of Trustees, and explain the basic math. Have them do that as well to your AD. And then tell them to fire his ass before he leads you off a cliff. Being down $50 million over the next 13 years will relegate your prized basketball team to working tricks in the back alley to pay the bills. Powerhouse basketball teams with the likes of Vandy and Rutgers will be stealing North Carolina recruits left and right. They will swoop in and take every good coach you ever have. I mean, you barely were able to keep Drake May this year, and your football coach has been crying a river about it. What do you think is going to happen to recruits who didn't come from a wealthy family who were lifetime Carolina fans? You've got to be realistic with the money situation here. Florida State University's Board of Trustees, Drew Weatherford, said it best. That extra $40 to $50 million per year goes to freeing money needed from the boosters, and much of that extra money is going to flow into NIL collectives. The bottom dwellers of both the SEC and the Big 10 are going to have piles more cash to steal your football players and your basketball players. So I'll repeat, anyone who has a home in the Big 10 or the SEC who is advocating to stay in the ACC is casting a vote, which will absolutely doom their program. The math is clear and the math is damning. Maybe Cunningham misspoke. I doubt he did, but maybe he comes out today and changes his tune. That would be great. But for a sitting AD to come out and rip FSU for trying to do something that will eventually benefit his own school financially is absolutely asinine. Florida State and Clemson make up 2/3 of the revenue in this conference. The ACC will die if Florida State, Clemson, and Miami leave. That'll all be over. UNC and anyone else that wants a future in this thing need to shut up, get in line, and do their best to not upset the Noles through all of this. It's time for Dan Radovich at Miami and Graham Neff to step up and join Michael Alford and unite to get us out of this conference in the grant of rights. Do you want to know how FSU specifically may be looking to do that? We've spoken with some folks, we read some reports, and we've got a video right here that you can click to find out more.